The margarita single-handedly helped popularize tequila in the United States throughout the 1950s and 1960s. And truth be told, not a lot has changed since then. The margarita is still one of the most popular cocktails worldwide, and though there are plenty of other signature tequila cocktails, a lot of regular drinkers couldn't name that many of them beyond 3 or 4 familiar favorites. And I think that's a shame, because there are tons of fantastic tequila cocktails that a lot of people just don't know exist. Today, I'm gonna go through a dozen iconic tequila cocktails, ranking them from S all the way down to F tier. Now, of course, everyone's preferences are different, and your version of this list is probably going to look pretty different from my version. Though I will be giving my opinions, the main purpose of this roundup is to highlight some underrated cocktails and give a little bit of history, because there is a lot of history, and more often than not, it gets a little contentious when bartenders or brands with big personalities have entered the fray over the decades. Let's get right into it. Starting with the margarita. Probably the most famous cocktail worldwide, right up there alongside the martini. At its simplest, the recipe is blanco tequila, orange liqueur, and lime. Combination that everyone knows. Now, there are a lot of conflicting accounts about the exact invention of the margarita, far too many for me to get into in this video, but most accounts typically date it to 1930s, 1940s in Mexico. What we do know is that Jose Cuervo championed the cocktail with an ad campaign in the United States in the 1950s that led with the slogan, "It's more than a girl's name," which is hard to believe in hindsight because I don't know anybody named Margarita, and that's probably because of the cocktail. I think the true staying power of this drink is that it can be remixed into just about any form, much like a martini. You have your Tommy's margarita, that early 2000s trend towards skinny margaritas, and then this recent push towards spicy margaritas and the occasional mezcal margarita. At this point, I think it's more of an outline than a specific recipe, and I would argue it is all the better for it. It's not a drink that I find myself reaching for at the bar that often, but I think it would be a vast disservice to put this at anything lower than A tier. The Paloma. Though the margarita might reign supreme here in the United States, the Paloma is the boss dog south of the border. So much so that the Paloma is actually the national cocktail of Mexico. A standard Paloma is blanco tequila, lime juice, and a grapefruit soda like Squirt, Ting, Jarritos, or Fresca. We have begun to see a lot more versions made with fresh squeezed grapefruit juice, but that's just not what you're gonna find at most bars in Mexico. I think one of the reasons this cocktail isn't quite as popular in the United States is just that grapefruit as a whole can be kind of a contentious flavor for Americans, which I think is a damn shame because the Paloma is probably my favorite tequila cocktail, at least my favorite basic, widely available tequila cocktail. The bittersweet flavor of grapefruit soda is just so refreshing and crushable on a hot summer day, and I think I could drink way more of them in a single sitting than I could a lime-based or an orange-based cocktail. There's no fine science to this, but for me, the Paloma is an all-timer. S tier, easy peasy. Coming up next, the ranch water. Nowhere near as popular as the margarita or Paloma, but it's slowly been getting there over the past few years. So much so that I think this is definitely in that three amigos of tequila cocktails that a lot of people know and love. At its simplest, the ranch water is blanco tequila, lime, and a whole lot of Topo Chico sparkling mineral water. It's basically the OG tequila seltzer. The drink is especially popular in Texas and is widely believed to have been invented by Kevin Williamson of Ranch 616. So the story goes, Williamson would go out for days-long hunts in the Texas desert, armed with a thermos filled with a margarita and plenty of ice. By the end of the day, the ice would melt, turning the thermos's contents into a totally new kind of drink. I don't know if that story is true, but that is what they say. On a hot Texas day, I can imagine this cocktail hitting like no other. But for most other occasions, I think it's just all right. I don't have anything against the ranch water, but obviously it doesn't reinvent the wheel. Like I said before, it's basically an OG tequila seltzer made with Topo Chico. It's totally dependable stuff, and I think C tier is a more than fair place to put it. The Tequila Sunrise. For a brief period in time, the most popular cocktail in America, possibly the world. The standard recipe combines tequila, orange juice, and grenadine, typically poured so that the grenadine pools at the bottom, creating that iconic sunrise look. Mick Jagger of the Rolling Stones took a liking to this cocktail during a pit stop in 1972. and subsequently ordered it at just about every bar across the United States. It then got super popular for about a decade and then pretty much just totally dropped off the map. And for good reason, because I think this cocktail sucks. No offense to any of the Tequila Sunrise enjoyers out there, but I think tequila and orange juice is a childish combination at best, and it just gets so much worse once you add grenadine into the mix. I have had good versions of grenadine, but more often than not, it usually just tastes like cherry cough syrup to me, and it's an ingredient I find myself avoiding on most bar menus. I would love to see a thoughtfully reimagined version of this cocktail in 2026, but for now, I'm gonna put it down in the F tier. Some things are best left forgotten. The Rosita, a Negroni-ish riff that combines reposado tequila, sweet and dry vermouth, Campari, and a few dashes of Angostura bitters. It's believed to have been invented in the 1970s before being rediscovered and popularized in the 2000s by legendary bartender Gary Gaz Reagan. As someone who finds themselves enjoying a lot of Campari and other Italian red bitter cocktails, I like this drink a lot. The reposado tequila adds a nice sweetness, the dry vermouth balances it out in the other direction, and then you get that hit of spice and herbs from the Angostura. Just a really well-rounded, thoughtfully crafted drink. If you're someone who enjoys a Negroni, and I feel like there are more and more of us every day, then I think you will agree that this cocktail goes in the A tier. El Diablo. This is a tall drink that combines reposado tequila, creme de cassis, which is a blackcurrant liqueur, add that with lime juice, and then plenty of ginger beer. This is another cocktail that had its heyday in the 1950s, and it's admittedly a little vintage by today's standards, but I still think it's pretty good. I think these days, people are so accustomed to the Moscow Mule that any other drink that combines spirits, ginger beer, and a third ingredient, especially one as punchy as blackcurrant liqueur, it might feel a little off-putting, at the very least a little bit odd. But I think the yin and yang of this cocktail work pretty well. The kick of ginger and that grape juice-like fruit note elevate this to an almost nostalgic flavor combo, and for me it's gonna be a B tier. The Mexican Firing Squad, a cocktail whose name is far and away more well known than its actual recipe. The drink combines blanco tequila, lime juice, grenadine, and 4 dashes of Angostura bitters, which is considerably more than you'd find in a lot of other cocktail contemporaries. The invention of the drink is widely credited to La Cucaracha Cocktail Club in Mexico City, a wildly popular spot for American expats during the Prohibition era. There aren't that many bars that serve a Mexican Firing Squad today, but I think in large part due to its rather flashy name, I've still seen it make the rounds a fair bit. I've already voiced my dislike for grenadine, so I won't elaborate too much further on my thoughts about this cocktail, other than to say that it actually contains more grenadine than a Tequila Sunrise, arguably the most iconic tequila and grenadine cocktail. But a nice splash of lime juice and a few extra dashes of Angostura bitters balance this out in a much more reasonable direction. If you ever manage to find this drink on a cocktail menu, I think it's worth giving a shot at least once, and I'm gonna put it in the D tier. The Bloody Maria. As its name implies, this is a Bloody Mary, plus all the fixings you would usually add to that, with vodka subtracted and tequila added. Bloody Marys are the definitive love it or hate it cocktail, so everyone's preferences are going to be a little bit different on this one. But I think that the vegetal flavor of a good Blanco tequila just works a lot better in this recipe than the milk toast appeal of a vodka. You can just taste it more, and I think that's always a good thing in a cocktail. If you're interested in going even further down this rabbit hole, you can also order a red snapper, which is just a Bloody Mary plus gin. That one is probably my most favorite of the 3 riffs. The Bloody Maria, however, is super solid in its own right, and I'm gonna put it in the B tier. The Batanga. This is a super simple drink that got surprisingly popular on TikTok and Instagram last summer. I'm not sure exactly what happened there, but no complaints if more people are hearing about a classic recipe. The Batanga is tequila, lime juice, Mexican Coke, and a salted rim. It's just as simple as that. Now, I've actually been to the bar in the town of Tequila, Mexico, where this drink was invented. And their secret ingredient is the knife that they use to stir it. They use that knife to cut the limes and other stuff in the kitchen, and supposedly by stirring the cocktail with it, it adds a certain je ne sais quoi. I'm gonna be totally honest, the version of the cocktail I had there on that day wasn't the best version of the cocktail I have ever tried by a long shot. Shout out to them though. It's a super iconic spot that any tequila fan should visit if they're ever in town. Nonetheless, the Batanga is a classic cocktail for good reason. There are millions of liquor plus Coca-Cola cocktails out there, and the Batanga is probably my second favorite, right behind a rum and coke, otherwise known as a Cuba Libre. If you make the drink with Mexican Coke, then it hits like no other, and I'm gonna put it in the B tier. The Cantarito. This is sort of the ultimate citrus tequila cocktail. It combines Blanco tequila, fresh squeezed grapefruit juice, fresh squeezed orange juice, fresh squeezed lime juice, grapefruit soda, a salt or tahine rim, and is then served in a little clay pot from which the name Cantarito is derived. These are served all over Mexico, and you can occasionally find it in the format of a cazuela voladora, which is the same drink but served from a big shallow bowl, which you can gather just 4 or 5 friends around and sip it all at the same time using a plastic straw. A very fun experience if you've never done that before, though probably not the best for germ cross-contamination. The combination of all those different types of citrus just make this really refreshing, thirst-quenching, and fresh on a hot day. I associate it with many of my best memories in Mexico, and I'm going to put it in the A tier. The Oaxacan Old Fashioned. This is an old-fashioned riff that combines 1.5 ounces of reposado tequila, half an ounce of mezcal, and then you add some agave nectar and a few dashes of Angostura bitters. It was invented in 2007 at New York City's Death and Company bar, and has since become wildly popular. These days, you can find it at pretty much any self-respecting tequila or mezcal bar in the country. It is, however, one of the rare spirit-forward tequila cocktails, which means that its quality is going to vary entirely based on the spirits that your bartender uses in it. The original version of the recipe calls for El Tesoro Reposado and Del Maguey San Luis del Rio Mezcal. I have had that version, and I can tell you that it is very, very good. I think just by virtue of being a spirit-forward tequila cocktail, the Oaxacan Old Fashioned deserves a lot of credit. And though you will find some subpar versions making the rounds at bars that I won't name in this video, I think it is a modern classic for good reason. I'm going to put it in the B tier. And that's the list. It goes without saying that a ton of cocktails didn't make it on. These aren't the only dozen tequila cocktails that I've ever tried, but I do think that they're the most representative for what most drinkers would find at the bar. If you have a personal favorite tequila cocktail that didn't make the list, which I'm sure you do, be sure to drop it in the comments below. My name is Pedro Wolf, and I taste and review agave spirits for a living, both here on the Tequila Pour and over on thedailypour.com. If you're interested in seeing more, be sure to like and subscribe.